One of the things that tends to be confusing for new Premiere users, actually tends to be confusing for a lot of people, is the standards for high definition video, or in other words, HD video. So let's go over the project panel again and create a new sequence and look at what are the HD standards. Now, if we close up the digital SLR, we have basically the standards in a sense. 480p is kind of like the standard for regular video. Actually, it's 480i. So if we click DV-NTSC, open that up, click on standard 48 kilohertz, we could see that there are some standards here, 29.97 frames per second, and it's 720 pixels wide by 480 pixels tall. In other words, horizontal and vertical, what the H and V stand for. And when we talk about size, as far as video goes, we often just use the vertical height in pixels, or in other words, in lines. And so for regular standard definition video, which is 720 by 480, this is referred to often as 480i. It's referred to as I because it refers to interlaced fields. And what that is, they make little horizontal bands, 480 horizontal bands from the footage, and then they interlace them with the next frame. And so this is what they refer to here, fields, lower field first. That means this is interlaced footage. But as we go up to higher definition, we have 480p. And this is not a high definition standard. This is referred to as ED, or enhanced definition. This is not very common. Now, to add to the confusion, because when there was standard definition, there was basically just SD and that's it. Eventually then came out with widescreen, but that was the same pixel dimensions, just a different pixel aspect ratio. And that's really the only difference there. But the pixel dimensions were the same. And HD has kind of made things a little confusing because there are so many formats. I'm going to close up digital SLR and actually all these other preset folders as well and open up AVC HD. And herein we find the standard HD formats. We have 720p, and this is 1280 by 720 with a progressive frame rate. Then we have 1080i, which as you can see here is broken up into 25 frames per second, 50 frames per second for PAL, and 30 and 60 frames per second for NTSC. 1080i is 1440 by 1080, but it has interlaced frames. And really true HD is 1920 by 1080 progressive frames. And again, progressive is when those frames are not interlaced and you see the entire frame as a whole. So again, the term HD standard is kind of a misnomer because there are multiple standards for HD. So it can be 1280 by 720 progressive frames, and that is HD. And it can be 1080i, and that is HD. And it can be 1080p, and that can be HD as well. When they talk about true HD or full HD, that's usually 1920 by 1080 with progressive frames.